you look at the current Premier League table, you see some familiar things. Crystal Palace 11th, Brentford in 12th, Manchester United in 13th. But when you look further down, things get a little bit more out of hand. You can call them a lot of things. Tottenham, Spurs, pathetic. But since the Harry Redknapp era, Spurs have consistently been European challengers. Challengers in the sense that they're usually completely at all angles, but challengers nonetheless. But this season they find themselves languishing in the lower mid-table, above the relegation zone as recently as last week. With supporters giving up on a team, results in the bin, and Ange Postecoglou losing it at his own supporters, this is a generational crash out. Quickly, before we get into this one, slap a like on the video. Look, it really does help me out. Tottenham fans, if you like the video, yeah, Ange might be gone soon, yeah, it might speed up the process. And when I hit 750k subscribers, I'm testing out my knee. Real life football videos coming soon. One wise woman once said, go chat to Brighton and Fulham and them man. Do you think Brighton, Fulham, or even them man want to actually talk to Tottenham at this point? This season has been an absolute car crash, really from start to finish. Mikel Antonio's had a better campaign, and he was actually in a car crash. And it's resulted in recent tensions rising between Ange and Tottenham's own fan base. From him confronting kids for putting a phone in his face down in the tunnel, to cupping his ears at supporters in the ground for booing him, to probably chucking one of them on his own barbecue, relations have fallen apart. But what has actually happened here? Well, life actually started pretty well at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for Ange Postecoglou when he was hired. By the time he'd actually learnt how to spell his surname, Tottenham were actually top of the league, and he'd accumulated himself a few Manager of the Month awards. His high energy, high risk, high entertainment style of football excited Spurs fans and even some neutrals as well. In the end, things would tail off, battling for a top 4 spot before finishing 5th. Not too bad given the loss of Harry Kane at the start of the season. In amongst some wholesome experience with supporters, some funny moments in press conferences, there was though a clash with himself and a couple of Spurs supporters come the end of the season. It would show his outspoken style when it comes to confrontation and also a sign of things to come for the next campaign. Oh, mate. Now, what are some things we expect from Tottenham? Ben Davies reminding you of his existence like 2 weeks in a season. Daniel Levy trying to convince like Beyonce or something to join the club on a free instead of actually spending money on a replacement. She'll be confused when she's told that she's in the starting 11 over Richarlison midway through her set at the stadium. But more than all of that though, bottling silverware. It's the obvious. We know it. Tottenham fans know it. There's more chance of Trent Alexander-Arnold walking through a fruit stand and not getting aroused than Spurs filling out even one shelf in their trophy cabinet. It's bare. As empty as Cole Palmer's cranium.
What?
There's probably weather systems going on in there. So the last thing you probably want to do as Tottenham manager is commit to winning silverware in just your second season of a generational rebuild.
I always win things in my second year.
Oh, mate. The pressure was now on for the Aussie icon going into his second season, and he would need reinforcements. In would come Dominic Solanke to finally, hopefully, fill that Harry Kane-shaped hole. Harry Kane not usually involved in a hole that you want filling if this is what's happening above you in Missionary. Let's go! Jesus Christ, I'm so sorry for giving you that image. So in now was Dominic Solanke. That was it. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know if you were expecting anybody else to join there. That would be it really in terms of first team regulars. In would come a couple of youngsters as well, like Lucas Bergvall from Sweden and also Archie Gray joining from Leeds. But I'm sure they wouldn't be expected to do too much like play completely out of position given they still earn pocket money from their parents. The start of the season would be a bit of a mixed bag. Like what Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall's pocket money can afford them when they walk into Londis. Big wins versus Everton, United and also West Ham, but then losses to Newcastle, Arsenal and also Crystal Palace. A loss to Ipswich was concerning before maybe the most Tottenham storyline ever, absolutely dismantling Manchester City 4-0 in the league and then beating them as well in the Carabao Cup. A set of results that would help spiral Manchester City's season out of control as well. But then would come the great invasion of Tottenham's medical department. An injury crisis like you've never seen before would sweep through Spurs' squad. And I'm not talking about like a couple key players out, I'm talking about entire positions going extinct. Both goalkeepers out at the same time. A complete run out of centre-backs with no Van der Veen, no Romero. In the end, Davies and Dragusin who would then get an ACL injury too. Midfielders out, wingers out, Solanke out most of the time. The club's translator probably ended up getting injured as well. Impressive given Ange Postecoglou actually speaks English. Their under-14 striker must have been confused watching at home.
Did I just get fucking drafted?
As he got announced in the starting 11 whilst watching on his television. Archie Gray was playing right back, centre-back, midfield midfield and groundsman at the same time, who are one more injury from Eric Dyer climbing back through the stands to get himself back in a starting 11. And it was an absolute catastrophe. Not exactly helped, honesty, exacerbated really, maybe even caused by Ange Postecoglou's high energy, frenetic style of play. Either way, it was an almost unprecedented injury crisis. I saw people comparing it to Newcastle's, where Eddie Howe did a much better job really of cycling through it, but in my opinion it was still worse. It was still worse than Liverpool's defensive injury crisis a few years ago, and that led to an almighty slump. A period in the middle of the season where they accumulated 4 points from 10 games. That's 4 points, 1 win and 1 draw from a maximum of 30. Heung-min Son would have had less PTSD if he'd actually been called up to the South Korean army. And it saw Spurs plummet through the table, 15th in the league at one point. They would have found themselves easily in a relegation battle if any of the promoted teams had actually decided to turn up for the campaign. For a slight little uptick, 3 wins in a row, then going back to the usual 4 winless after that. And that leaves us in a current state where an Australian man is consistently staring at his fate that's written out down on the floor. He was getting vexed, he was getting upset all of the time, clashing, as I said, with supporters who were filming him and taunting him. He then came out and said that it was less about the fact they were Spurs fans, more about them as like humans and what their dads are teaching them about, you know, being respectful. Whether they really wanted to actually help Tottenham Football Club or just get their 15 seconds of fame by saying they filmed and antagonized Ange Postecoglou, which I do agree with. I think, to be honest with you, a lot of fans these days are more concerned really about what they can film and getting a clip that will do well on social media without actually thinking about what it's going to do to the players, to the manager. You know, you had Matthijs Tel going viral the other week as well for having to calm down Spurs fans and speak to them. Not that they don't have a right to be upset. Do not get it twisted, because this is perhaps one of the worst seasons in Spurs' history, given expectations to what we are currently sat at. And also, you know, we've got to bear in mind, these were kids, realistically. They're just children. They don't know any better. But either way, Ange is lashing out. And that lashing out continued between him and the fans when, during the game versus Chelsea, he was booed for his substitutions. A dangerous game when he's this close to substituting his fist into their faces. Then when Papsar scored one of those substitutes, he cupped his ear to the fans to kind of ask where the booing was now, only for that goal to be disallowed by VAR about 6 minutes later. He denied that he'd done this, even though there's clear evidence, and he'll be looking to take drastic action when he realizes that games shown on Sky Sports actually get shown to people in their homes on television.
That fucking last video can't go anywhere.
Bro is genuinely losing his mind at this point. You can even see Speed on stream jumping over Tottenham's season at the moment. That's how bad it's getting. But why is this happening? Why has this happened? The very obvious answer, or one of the very obvious answers, is ultimately the injury crisis, and we'll get onto that in a second. But a lot of people have been questioning Ange Postecoglou's tactics through this campaign too. The Spurs, characteristically, under Ange, I mean, it was coined Ange ball, but no one, surprisingly enough, says that anymore, is characterized by being extremely brave, playing out from the back pretty much relentlessly, with a high line, high press, but equally allowing themselves to feel a little bit of pressure before springing counterattacks on their opponents. And that means it's very high intensity because it involves a lot of fast-paced running from both ends of the pitch. There's a lot of sprinting, there's a lot of closing down in terms of the press, but there's also then a lot of high intensity sprints when it comes to their attacking play as well. Now, yes, they've been unlucky with those injuries. I mean, goalkeeping injuries, for example, are not down to high-intensity sprints. They ain't sprinting anywhere. Spurs have undoubtedly been very unlucky, but these tactics have also contributed to their injury crisis as well. So not only has Ange contributed tactically to the crisis that he finds himself in, he's also unrelenting and unwilling to change those tactics. So I don't mean necessarily he has to change his entire game just because he's got a few injuries. Other managers are also usually unwilling to go down a new tactical route just because a couple of players are out. But unfortunately, because the way Spurs set up is very reliant realistically on players actually having a lot of familiarity, because it's very high risk, okay? You can't have a high risk tactic, you can't have a high risk strategy and have players that don't really know each other and how they play. You've got to have a midfield of like Madison, Bentancur, and let's say Papsar that know exactly how they're going to interact with each other. A left-hand side of Udogie and Son who know exactly what they're going to do in every scenario. So when those players are constantly out injured and the whole starting starting 11's changing week on week. There's no familiarity and the entire structure falls apart most of the time. So now you're missing key players, and because you're chopping and changing the starting 11 all the time, these players don't know how to interact with each other anymore. The thing is though, Tottenham, as I've said multiple times this season, are doing well statistically. If you didn't look at the table and you looked at the stats of Spurs, even just as simple as the amount of goals they've scored, you would assume they're fighting for the Champions League. They've scored more goals than Arsenal, who are literally second in the league. I mean, arguably you could still say Arsenal are in the title race. We just lost to Fulham. But either way, right, they have scored more goals than a team that's currently sat second in the league. They have a very solid goal difference. I don't think I've ever seen a team be in 15th in the league and have a positive goal difference before, let alone a goal difference of +11. When they win games, they win by a lot. They are actually quite good at scoring goals. Their XG is pretty high, but even like underlying stats, you know, like ball carrying stats, progressions into the final third, these are the values that are held of teams that are actually in the European places. So why exactly are they failing so drastically? Is Ange a bad tactician, or have they just been horrendously unlucky all season? As I said, if you crunch the numbers, it looks like Ange is doing a good job, but unfortunately, the one criticism I think I have of him that's a massive criticism is there's no adaptability. One thing I'd characterize him this season as again, extremely prone to injuries, but also unbelievably predictable. I don't think Vicario's taken a long goal kick since like 2017. Teams know exactly how to press them, exactly how to take them on, and ultimately exactly how to beat them. Plus, they're making so many like little errors amongst themselves defensively. They may still be in the Europa League at the point of recording here, but ultimately this season has been an absolute disaster. Something that Ange Postecoglou himself is even ready to accept at this point, saying that he was happy that he'd even lasted 2 years because most Tottenham managers don't even last that long. Daniel Levy won't be happy with this quote next time he sees him in a board meeting.
Let's not take the piss here.
And this is now where we're at with Ange, to the point where like he knows that he's gone. He knows his time is up. He's basically waiting on them to get like eliminated from the Europa League or for the end of the season to come, and he's out of that door. So he knows he can say whatever the fuck he wants to. The result of this is going to be the exact same. Like, have you ever seen a manager actually want to get sacked before? Oh wait, no, we actually have. What is it about Tottenham that makes managers want to simultaneously test out gravity from an 11th story building? Apart from the lack of trophies and the financial support and the leadership and the general success. It falls down to ownership, it falls down to Enoch, it falls down to Daniel Levy. I know Spurs fans know this. They're probably surprised it's taken me this long to say this in the video. I think Daniel Levy's done some great things for Spurs, and I don't think they would be where they were or where they are now if it wasn't for him in basically every way possible. At the end of the day, they have a state-of-the-art stadium that hosts basically everything on top of football. It's an entire complex for the arts. It's not just football. They have actually done an incredible job of going above and beyond what Arsenal did, for example, with the Emirates, which was to build a new modern stadium, which hurt Arsenal at the time financially. They weren't able to put as much money into transfers, for example, but they had a new stadium. They had more income coming in terms of gate receipts on match days. Spurs have done that and then gone above and beyond. They've got concerts going on there all the time. NFL matches, the amount of money making that they are doing from just building that stadium is incredible. From a business perspective, they've done well. Ultimately, they've escaped from the depths of the mid-table in the early 2000s to being regular European contenders. But that is where it ends. Daniel Levy is not the man to take them further, because when it comes to the real nitty-gritty, big decisions that really matter when it comes to winning silverware, he doesn't make the right decisions. Ultimately, the chopping and changing that has gone on with managers and managerial styles over the last like decade is absolutely crazy. Like, do you want an Antonio Conte or Jose Mourinho, or do you want a Pochettino or Ange Postecoglou? The actual style and identity of Spurs has changed so much without really changing at all, because the identity is still they don't win anything, no matter what style of football they actually play. Sacking Jose Mourinho just before he's about to play in a cup final, he wins finals. That's what he does. Why would you sack him in that moment? And ultimately, investment is not there, and also critically, recruitment isn't there. I'm not gonna lie, Spurs have recruited well at times recently and apocalyptically at others. I think they have like a really wide range, and I noticed this with clubs that are obviously struggling at the moment. United have some highs and some horrible lows. Ugarte, I think, is a decent signing for Manchester United, but Rasmus Højlund for 70 mil and Anthony for 100 mil is absolutely insane. Chelsea have recruited pretty well in certain aspects. Caicedo took some time and a lot of money, but he's one of the best DMs in the league. Cole Palmer, an absolute steal. Until recently, he was one of the best players in the league overall. But then you look at some of their failure stories, and they are, again, Mudryk, 100 mil. It's like, it's crazy stupidity. Spurs, kind of under the radar almost because of what foolishness United and Chelsea are doing, kind of have a similar thing. It's just less money's being spent. Astute signings like Bergvall, Vicario, and Mickey van der Veen are impressive, but not even replacing Kane at all for an entire season after you sold him, as well as miscues like Richarlison and just generally kind of like uninspiring or meh signings like Timo Werner don't really show the ambition that you need if you're going to actually go and win a trophy. And it's not like they're actually investing a lot of money. They're just investing money that they get from selling other players, like Harry Kane, for example. And then the audacity for Daniel Levy to pay himself the most of any chairman across the entire Premier League, a pay package of about £6.5 million a year with a £3 million bonus. And that's just what he's officially paying himself. Now, I've spoken more in detail about Daniel Levy and the relationship between him and the fans in a separate video that you can check out. This video is more about Ange Postecoglou and his future. So what exactly is that future? For me, none. I think based on what he's saying in press conferences and interviews, it's a wrap. You see with managers sometimes, as soon as they start saying things, where they quite evidently don't care, like they're just saying stuff that is going to annoy an owner, that is going to annoy a chairman. He's constantly ranting about VAR and stuff, and that's fine. I think he's right about VAR in some aspects, but he, I think, knows that the jig is up. And that adds a greater question onto the future of Tottenham, because we're just getting the same cycle again. Underperform, manager leaves, a new manager will come in with a completely different tactical identity to what Ange was trying to do, and the cycle will continue. They'll need another rebuild until that manager underperforms and Daniel Levy pulls the trigger again. But Spurs fans, what do you make of this? Do you think Ange Postecoglou deserves a little bit more time? Do you think he deserves a season where he's not hit by an injury crisis, or is he the reason for the injury crisis? And do you think that he should go? Who should replace him? That, though, is it for today's video. If you did enjoy, feel free to slap a like on it and subscribe if you're new to the channel. You can also follow me on social media. It is @theofficialfng on Twitter, Insta, and on TikTok. But it's been a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.